United stand, this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as Erik ten Hag is set a strange task by INEOS for next season where top four may not be a requirement. We'll talk about that. Also, more importantly, a new Ligt transfer plan that doesn't involve Ligt. Don't do it. Don't move away from Ligt, but apparently Manchester United might be well ready to do that, looking at a Benfica centre-back who, in my opinion, might be a little bit more expensive. We'll talk about that as well. Left-backs, well, Fabrizio has given an update on left-backs, which has sat down a certain English journalist who knows nothing. He's Jon Snow. We'll also be talking about what's going on with Massia, why he's been left behind. We've got midfield updates. Jadon Sancho, why is Jadon Sancho back at Manchester United but not back at Manchester United? We'll talk about that and the lack of social media activity from Sancho, who doesn't seem to be back in body but not back in mind. No Instagram posts, no pictures of him going on the tour. What's going on there? Also want to talk about Fulham's latest move, expected to bid for Scott McTominay again, but are bidding £35 million for Smith Rowe. Is this why Arsenal are higher in the league than Manchester United? Because they will get rid of youth products that aren't good enough, whereas Manchester United just seem to want to make do. Harry Maguire set to stay for another year. McTominay set to stay for another year. Why do Man United make do? And are INEOS not meant to be something new? We'll talk about that. And I've got my rhyming hat on as well. Loads to get into. Also, can I just give a big, massive shout out at the start of the stream for the book. The book is out a week yesterday. A week yesterday. Yeah, a week yesterday the book is out. I can tell you that sales-wise, pre-orders, it's doing really well. We're on the verge of getting into the top 10 of the Sunday Times bestseller list. On the verge of it, based on what the numbers were last week and how many we've sold this week. So please do keep pre-ordering it. It's a great book. You'll enjoy it anyway. It's available worldwide. Amazon, you can get it worldwide. Audible, you can get the audio version. If you want a signed copy and you live in the UK, WH Smith. Links in the description. Scan the QR code. We are getting so close to achieving that, and it'll be a big up yours to the mainstream if we can. Another big win for the community. Thanks to everyone who's checking it out and pre-ordering the book. Absolute legends. It was always going to be a tall ask to do it, but we're quite close to doing it. Thank you. Right, let's get into the show. We're going to start off with the centre-back situation, and we'll have a roundup of the transfer news. However, there are a few things to talk about on the show this morning. Of course, the Ten Hag target, apparently from INEOS, he doesn't have to get top four this season. We'll talk about that. Also, I think it's important to say that we can't just... I don't want United to just sit back and accept it. You know, I saw some of the pictures yesterday of the players getting on the plane, and I was just like, some of these players shouldn't be at this football club anymore. I know some people don't like that. They get all, precious about it, but they shouldn't be at the football club anymore. And I just think, let's not settle. There are players that Arsenal and Man City get rid of. I mean, Man City got rid of Jesus, Zinchenko. They let Gundogan go. They move on really good players, and we keep players that just, they're well liked at Carrington. Well, that'll get us 3 points at Anfield, won't it? They're well liked at Carrington. Oh yeah, that's definitely get us 3 points at Anfield. We need to start moving on. And I think some people will come to it in a minute because this transfer news. But yesterday morning, all right, I hadn't had a lot of sleep the night before. I was moody. I'll admit that yesterday morning, but I still stand by what I said. Like, ultimately, we've bought a replacement for Varane. We've bought a striker that we needed last summer. And Donny, Camboala and Greenwood have gone. The rest of them are out of contract. And it's now nearly August. It's been a good start, but it's starting to stagnate. It's starting to slow down. And you can be positive. I'm still positive, but it's slowing down. It's really slowing down. The last 48 hours has gone flatlining. And that's the truth. I speak to journalists. I speak to people. It's flatlining. Basically what you get is everyone's gone on tour. It'll probably go quiet for a few days. And everyone has gone on tour. Barada, Ashworth, Wilcox, Ten Hag, they've all gone on tour. So where's the business? What's happening? We need stuff to be happening. We're running out of time. Amir, thank you for being a member for 23 months. Have you seen the away kit? The away kit is nice. I'm not somebody who gets into kits, but I do like the away kit. And Ayut, thank you very much. Welcome to Members Club. Okay, let's hit the latest transfer news. There is a new Ligt transfer plan. Manchester United at the moment, depending on who you speak to, the De Ligt deal is very much up in the air. Love your work, Mark, honestly, says Prajwell. Thank you very much for your super chat, mate. Really appreciate that. Hope you have a great day. So the De Ligt transfer is up in the air. You can speak to Fabrizio, you can, speak to a few other people, and you'll get different answers on this. But with regards to De Ligt, it's very much up in the air. Some people are saying we're moving away from a deal and that the deal won't happen. Some people are saying it likely will happen, but it will take a bit of time. I still think it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, this is part of my concern. Like, I see Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof on the plane yesterday, and I just think we are walking into the same mistakes that surely INEOS and Ten Hag are aware of. We literally did this last year. We didn't get Kim Min-jae. We were trying to sell Maguire and Lindelof. We kept them. We didn't get Kim Min-jae, and it all went to shit. Like, they are not good enough at centre-back for a top 4 team. It's the end. The story over. So it worries me when I see the smiling on the plane and all this, and I think this is like watching UK Gold. I've seen this episode before, and it's not even a classic. I've seen these players getting on the plane before, smiling in America, and I'm like, I know I'm not saying don't let them on the plane, but what I'm saying is there should be other players on the plane. And if you're Harry Maguire or you're Victor Lindelof and you are on that plane, of course you're smiling. You play for Manchester United. They haven't bought any other centre-backs that are going to really bother you other than Yoro, who's 18. So you're like, I'm on easy street again. I'm here. I'm in the box seat. No one's got my spot. And we're going on tour. Like, it's the end of July and there are people, McTominay in the midfield, Eriksen in the midfield, Casemiro in the midfield, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire. I'd be happy if I was any of them. Big wages. No one's come in and took my place yet. Season starts in a couple of weeks. I'm training with the first team. I'm bringing my apple in every day, making Ten Hag smile. I'm joking with Ruud van Nistelrooy. I'm getting on with Rennie. I've met Sir Jim. Oh, he's a nice lad. And that does worry me. And people will say, you're being irrational. Well, I might be being irrational, but I've been down this road before. I've seen this happen before. I've seen it happen with new managers before. Oh, they'll get rid of this player and then they don't. So I'm a little bit concerned because once you've got your feet under the table and you're one of the lads, it becomes more difficult and more difficult. And look, maybe it's the plan all along. Maybe the INEOS and Ten Hag plan all along is not to really sell that many players. You make out you're going to sell them, and then you don't sell them, and you get fans on board with a bit of PR of, oh, look at them on tour, smiling and loving each other and beating out Liverpool on Sunday in a relevant pre-season game. I'm hoping that's not going to happen. But nobody can tell me that it's not going to happen because we've seen it happen summer after summer after summer. I'm just a little bit of anxiety around it at the moment because I don't want to see these players starting for Manchester United again. I don't even want to see them on the bench, to be honest. I want to see a clear out, and I just think there has been a slowdown. But with De Ligt, basically the latest with De Ligt is, and I think you might have seen it yesterday with Kevin Maud's 2 great shows yesterday, talking about the left-back situation. There was a really big left-back drop yesterday. And the sinister side of me was like, why are we getting a left-back drop when we haven't even sorted out the midfield and the centre-back? Why are we suddenly talking about left-back when we haven't sorted centre-back and midfielder? And I was thinking, oh, shit, this is worrying. Left-back's always been, we can sort that out later when we've sorted out the priorities. That's always been the story around left-back. We will get a left-back, but we can sort that out when we've sorted out other priorities. And then yesterday afternoon, suddenly we're getting drops about left backs, and I'm going, oh god, what's going on here then? Oh no, why are we suddenly talking about left backs? We haven't even sorted the centre back and the midfielder out, and suddenly we're getting drops about left backs, which previously we've been saying that's for later on. And I'm thinking, a week ago we were talking about 2 midfielders and 2 centre backs. A week later we haven't even got one in of either position, and now we're talking about left backs, and you're like, oh no. They're kicking this down the road to August, aren't they? They're going to kick it down the road. But look, with the centre-back situation, Bayern Munich won't shift. I think Man United are offering too low anyway. As I said yesterday, 50 million euros for De Ligt, which is 42 million pounds, I think is fair for a 24-year-old with his experience. Man United don't want to pay it, so we're sort of locked on this. We won't move. There is a good point, and Peter messaged me about this. Very good point. Said that, you know, maybe Man United know that they're going to do these deals, but they want to take their time on them to spread it out. You know, that they're not going to be taken for a ride. Maybe they feel it's worth negotiating it down over a few weeks. I mean, look, that could be an angle. We're all dancing in the dark. We don't know what the solution is. I personally think we will get De Ligt. Maybe there's a little bit of hope in there, but I do think we'll get him because, as Ten Hag said, he wants him. But De Ligt was actually highlighted by INEOS as a signing. So if we don't get De Ligt, we know INEOS have had to move away from what they wanted as well, which I don't think they clearly want to put that message out there. So I think we will get him. But I also think that what we need to do is be very, very wary of time passing by. Now, Portuguese reports have got us this morning being linked to Antonio Silva of Benfica, who I believe is 20 years of age. I'm just going to double check this now, but I think he's about 20 years of age, and he's a right footer. Now, he's got a release clause of about 80 million euros, but what they're saying is that Manchester United would be looking to negotiate a cheaper deal with Benfica potentially. So I'm not for this. I'm not for this really. I think that, all right, I get it with Branthwaite, and you can't just say you can't walk away from Branthwaite and not walk away from De Ligt. Of course you can. You can do it with Ugarte as well, but if we pivot towards Antonio Silva or Diamonde, like Anzu says, or, you know, Tapsoba or whoever else, or Guehi, then you're sort of starting again. And starting negotiations again delays it. I wouldn't say United aren't capable of pivoting, but I just... I can't. I can honestly sit here and say I don't feel any different than I did yesterday morning. I am starting to get a little bit of anxiety about the fact that, you know, pre-season proper starts now with us on tour, and I'm looking at some of the play. I mean, it terrifies me. I've got to be honest. It terrifies me that we've still got Casemiro, Eriksen, and McTominay, and no midfielder in. It terrifies me that we've only got an 18-year-old in, and that's, you know, I like Yoro. But that's Varane. Varane was our best centre-back, and Yoro is 18. That's literally what we've done. Yoro's a fantastic signing, but he's 18 years of age. That was Varane. Now, I've got no problem getting rid of Varane. That's not my point. My point is, look at the Man United squad for pre-season. No new midfielders. And the only thing we've done is let Varane go and replace him with an 18-year-old. I don't like the centre-back roster, and I do not like the midfield roster at all. And it is giving me a bit of anxiety, if I'm being honest. And anybody who just says, calm down, Mark, it'll be fine. We've still got plenty of time. And I'm like, it's pre-season, lads and ladies. It's pre-season. Like, you can't... They're not on holiday in Greece doing their shuttle runs. This is pre-season. This is where... You are starting to form patterns, and I genuinely think INEOS need to start moving quicker on these sort of things. As I said, look, Fulham, or David Ornstein this morning, Fulham are going to pay £35 million for Smith Rowe to Arsenal. What a bloody deal that is. £35 million for Smith Rowe. I've hardly seen him play for Arsenal for 2 years. £35 million Arsenal are going to get for Smith Rowe. United are sat there saying, we're not selling McTominay. And I think this is part of the reason why we won't succeed at the very, very, very top. Because we're still too sentimental. Like, Fulham wanted McTominay. I don't think Fulham will want McTominay now. I think Smith Rowe will be the McTominay alternative. So I don't think Fulham are going to come in for McTominay now. I hope they still will. And I hope we still will do... a deal with them, but the fact that Arsenal are quite open to doing a deal like that because it's pure profits, it's a young player, and Arteta obviously doesn't see him as a first team player, so they cash in. And then United are going, well, you know, people can put offers in for McTominay, but we don't want to sell him because he's a nice lad to have around the dressing room. I bet Smith Rowe's a nice lad to have around the dressing room as well, but yeah, you know, I think there's opportunities to sell players, and we're not being aggressive enough in trying to do it. Because if we could offload a player in the midfield or at centre back, I think you'd see a little bit more urgency at centre back as well and in the midfield. But look, that probably scuppers any move for McTominay now from Fulham, which is a bit of a shame when you've got Fulham making bids for McTominay and we just basically go, he's not for sale. And then we need a fucking midfielder. INEOS are dealing with sins of the past, not their fault. No, I want to say this is absolutely what I said yesterday. You know, some people don't use their ears. I said this yesterday. I don't blame INEOS for this. They're not playing on a level wicket. They are playing, on very, very bad foundations, and they're facing bouncers in a cricket sense. They are. Having said that, you know, it's difficult to get rid of players that are on big contracts and big wages that don't want to go. It ain't difficult to say Scott McTominay's for sale. It isn't. It isn't difficult to say Maguire's for sale or, you know, Lindelof's for sale. That's not difficult. They could be pushing that. I don't know what that's all about. But Patrick Lynch says the legacy of the previous regime is the problem. And we did say this yesterday. The deals we did in the past has impacted us sooner than expected as INEOS has tried to hit the ground running. Selling is the biggest issue. Have to hope the new board can pull off something. Yeah, selling is the big issue. Look, we're not going to talk about that this morning. That was yesterday's show. Sell to buy, as we said yesterday morning, is the problem we have at the moment. And also, if we want to call it out for what it is, and some people just don't want to do this, you know, you see a picture of a certain United player smiling on the plane, you look at the comments, and some people are going, my guy, great to have you back. And then some people are going, you need to leave. Why are you still at the football club? And, you know, that's divisive opinion, of course, but that is the problem, in my opinion, and it's only an opinion. I look at certain players in that squad and I go, you've got absolutely no ambition. You've got absolutely no genuine love for your own career because you are going to stay at this football club earning a wage that you probably don't deserve on a contract you never should have been given because you just want to stay at Man United and see what happens. And if everybody stays fit, you won't be anywhere near the first team, but you will just sit here and tell yourself that, you know, I'm in the right place and, you know, I'm good enough. And the reality is you're not good enough. You know, everybody knows you're not good enough. And you really should be leaving, but you've got no ambition to go and play first team football anywhere else because you're on a comfortable ride. And some people hate it when that sort of thing gets said, but I know footballers. I know what some footballers are like. I know what their agents are like. And it ain't about waking up in the morning in your Man United pyjamas thinking, hopefully this year's the year we're going to win the league. It's about waking up in the morning and going, I'm on a good wage. I'm in a comfortable position. Why should I take a pay cut to play first team football? And actually, why should they? That is a good point. The player sometimes is the victim as well. If I'm a winger for Man United and I'm on 180 grand a week and I've got 3 years left on my contract, and you know, I probably know I'm not going to play that much next season, and I know that, you know, I'm probably, you know, not a big fan favourite, but you know, I get on with the lads and I turn up for training and it's pre-season and I think, you know what, it'd be nice to play first team football for a mid-table club, but they're not going to give me 180 grand a week. I'll be lucky if I get 100 grand a week. I've got a 3-year contract here. You know what? I might be in and out of the team, but it's not a bad life. You know, I get to travel, see the world. You know, it's not a bad life for 3 years, is it? And we've got a lot of players like that. People don't want to accept this. You know, whether it's the hardcore, whether it's the soft core, whether it's the bit in the middle, people don't want to accept that the modern footballer does things for money. Why do you think people went to play in China? You know, why do you think some people went to Saudi Arabia? Like, the modern footballer does things for money. And we gave players massive contracts and massive wages that nobody else will give them. So what you're saying is, why don't you want to go and play for Newcastle every week? Or why don't you want to go and play for Everton every week? Well, they won't give me the wage. So you'll stay at United taking up someone's spot. Yeah, not my problem. Anyway, let's carry on. There's lots of news to get into as well. Left back situation, hilarious. Hilarious left back situation. So I watched the videos yesterday. We were linked to Hanko. We were linked to Cucurella. We were linked to Alonso. Loads and loads of left backs dropped yesterday from lots and lots of different sources. And then late last night, Fabrizio Romano, I think, wasn't it? It was a certain journalist in the MEN. And then I think another journalist said it as well, that we're in for Alonso, which sent a lot of people into, turmoil and a bit of a spin, because no one wants Marcos Alonso. He's 33. I wouldn't have wanted him at 25. I don't want him at 33. Anyway, certain journalist in the Manchester Evening News and somebody else was saying about it. Fabrizio came out and said, no talks, not true. And I just thought, that's the summer transfer window. Whether you find it funny or not, that's the summer transfer window. Manchester United and proper transfer news is exclusively coming through Ornstein and Romano. Apart from that one that Chris Wheeler did a few weeks ago, they're not getting anything. So I don't really take a lot of notice about stories about things like that at the moment, because nobody is getting anything decent about it. What I would say about the left back before we move on to the midfield is that Massia has been left behind. And there's a few people in the chat who sort of want to, make up nonsense about, I've got an issue with Massia. I've got no issue with no Man United player. I know what Man United should be. I know how good Man City are. I know where our weaknesses are. And I'm not going to go for lunch with some of these midfielders, and I'm not going to go for lunch with any of these centre-backs. They're professionals who I don't even think support Man United, some of them. I don't think they do, correct me if I'm wrong. They get paid by my football club to play for my football club. So my only interest is my football club. So I don't give a shit about personality or, they might not be able to deal with being told that they're not good enough for Man United and they should leave. That's just football. Like, what's the point of a transfer window? What's the point of a trophy at the end of the season if you're just going to sit there and go, well, privately, I think they're a bit shit, but I don't want to say it publicly because, it might hurt their feelings. They are professional athletes and they get paid a lot of money to play for my football club. And ultimately, if I think that there are 4 or 5 players that need to go that can be replaced to make us better to get close to Man City, why would you not say that? And why would you be scared of saying that? So when we're talking about players that need to move on, that's what we're doing. Now, what I said about Massia is yesterday, I'll be surprised if he plays again before Christmas. And I had people messaging me saying, is that official? And I said, no, it was a tweet. It was a tweet. Like, I'll be surprised if he plays again before Christmas because he's been out for over a year. And I don't think people understand. Man United are going to get a left back in. If Massia was going to be fit, we wouldn't do it. Because, all right, Luke Shaw's injury prone, but he might not get injured before Christmas. Luke Shaw we might have a Christmas miracle. He might be fit all season. So Luke Shaw might not get injured this season. And Massia, if he's back, you've got 2 left backs. And you've also got Murray and Amas if you really need to promote someone. So it's very obvious that Massia is not part of the plans. And that is why we're looking for a left back. But Massia is not on the US tour. He's nowhere near being ready for the start of the season. And I don't think he will be anywhere near that Man United team. He might not play for United again, to be fair. But I don't count Massia. I think some people count him as part of an option this season. That would be a bonus. I don't count him as an option because I just think that when you've missed a year of football, I think it's going to be very difficult. I think there will be secondary injuries. I think there'll be hamstrings. I think there'll be calves. I think there'll be ankles. I think the other knee might go. These are all chances that are increased when you've been out for a year with a knee injury like that. So I don't count Massia. It's nothing to do with his ability. I don't really remember much about what he was like as a player. I don't want him to retire. I hope he can get back. I'd love to see him in a Man United shirt again, but I can't remember whether he was good enough, if I'm being honest. But the injury is significant. And I would say the same about Lavia at Chelsea. I think it's hard to come back from that. So on left-backs, I personally think the left-back stories that dropped yesterday were because Massia wasn't on the plane. And that's not, I've not been told that, but when people are going, why are we suddenly talking about left backs when we need a centre back and a midfielder? I personally think that the left back story drop yesterday was journalists putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 6 because Massia wasn't on the plane. Murray's on the plane, and I think people were like, well, we've got to buy a left back, but we already know we need to buy a left back. So that was my take on that. Into the midfield, where are we with that? Well, again, the honest points tonight, and remember we're going to talk about this story as well that's come out yesterday, that apparently INEOS will not sack Ten Hag if he doesn't get top 4. That's a nice to have, but it's not the priority. I don't agree with that, by the way, and I support Ten Hag. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But let's just catch up on the latest transfer stuff. So we've spoken about alternatives at centre-back. We've spoken about what's going on at left-back. There is a concrete possibility, and this is coming out from numerous sources this morning, that Manchester United will bring Amrabat back. What does that mean for the midfield? Because Fabrizio said yesterday the two favourites are Ugarte or Amrabat. Now, if it's Ugarte or Amrabat, and we bring Amrabat in, I will sit here and say we're probably not going to get top four. I do not, in any way, shape, or look. I'm not going to just be half glass full. We've had 10 years of failure. If our midfield next season is Casemiro, McTominay, Amrabat, Mainu, Mount, Bruno, forget it. Forget it. That is absolutely, imbalanced. That is cheap. That is lazy. That is unambitious. That is Glazer. If we're going to take the same midfield as last year and start with it this year, then we've been lied to. Not for 1 minute do I think, especially when Casemiro, Eriksen and McTominay could be sold and you could buy two midfielders. So that, to me, cannot be the case. That cannot be the case. Now, somebody in the chat just said, what about Rabiot? You know what my problem is, before we talk about Ugarte and Zubimendi, is my problem with Amrabat and Rabiot are, if we sign Amrabat and if we sign Rabiot, explain this to me. What have we been doing for 25 days? Amrabat hasn't been in the Euros. He wasn't in the Euros. He's been on holiday in June. He could have been in pre-season with us on tour, practicing our triangles and our high line. Why is Amrabat training in a pair of fucking Man United shirts in a gym somewhere, and then we go, yeah, we'll keep him? I mean, I look, we can shout out the positives, and there are loads of positives, and there are a lot of negatives that are nothing to do with INEOS. Like, you can't sell somebody with 3 years left on their contract on 200 grand a week that you didn't buy in the first place and won't leave. But Amrabat, what the fuck's going on with that? Like, he's been available since July, the 1st of July. Why would you bring him back to Man United and miss pre-season again? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But apparently there's a concrete possibility he'll be coming back. If we bring Amrabat back, it stinks of, we wanted better, we've tried to get better, we couldn't get better, so we'll make do with you. That's what that says to me. Unless you've got a different interpretation, why would you leave Amrabat for the month of July training on his own, waiting for United, if you wanted him in the first place? Same with Rabiot. If we bring Rabiot in, it screams to me of, we could have done this weeks ago. Why are we doing it now? Oh, because we couldn't get anything better. So if we end up with Rabiot or Amrabat now, I think it sends a very, very worrying message that we failed in the midfield department. Like, I think in June we were looking at Eriksen and Casemiro going, and we were looking at probably Ugarte coming in. Now in late July, Casemiro's nowhere, Eriksen's nowhere, Amrabat's waiting for us. Like, it's not going to plan if you bring in Rabiot or Amrabat, as far as I'm concerned. And as Patrick says, Amrabat and Rabiot feel like stopgaps, not stable change. Challenging for titles is a multi-year process. I don't know if either gets as close as Patrick. Well, this is the thing, you could set yourself back. Pranash, welcome to Members Club. Sven is a big McTominay fan, so before I read this, I've just got to give it a bit of a, an alert. McTominay did a decent job for us last season. He's a good bench option, and there is no reason to sell him right now. Oh, apart from the fact that we need to raise money and we'd get £25 million from him, and it's pure profit, Sven. Maguire, Lindelof and Eriksen should leave first. They're on big wages. I agree with the second part, but I disagree with the first part. Let's not tar INEOS with Glazer incompetence. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt in their first transfer window, says Lund. Well, mate, no, you can do what you like. That's fine. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt because the transfer window will be judged on the end of August with a score out of 10. That's when they'll be judged. I agree with that. Let's see where we are at the end of August. But at the moment, I've always said I will judge them on sales and where we are against Fulham. And at the moment, the sales have slowed down. and Fulham is getting closer. I don't want to play Fulham with Maguire at centre-back and McTominay in the midfield with Casemiro. I don't want to play that game. I've seen it before. I don't mind them being on the bench, but I want to see a new Man United against Fulham hitting the ground running. And, you know, a leopard doesn't change its spots. Doesn't matter how well you train. I mean, I think the game on Sunday against Liverpool is going to be really interesting. It's Arne Slot against Erik ten Hag. Of course, both teams will change their teams. But who plays the better football will be very interesting. Like, who's knocking the ball around better? That is going to be very interesting to see on Saturday. Hi, Mark. Is there anything McTominay can do to win you over, or have you seen enough? I agree with your assessment of him, but I'm genuinely intrigued why so many managers in the club itself value him. Are we missing something, says Gotham? This is a great question. I've got an update on Agate and Zubimendi, by the way, whilst we're talking about midfield. No, there's nothing he can do. I'm sure he's a really nice lad. All the feedback I get is that he's a really good lad and everyone really, really likes him. But as I've said before, so is my postman, and he's a Man United fan. Should we put him in the midfield? Like, no. Like, obviously McTominay's better than my postman, but what I'm saying is he ain't good enough. He's not good enough. He's a nice lad. He cares about the club, but he ain't good enough. So, look, for some of you, I think you're sympathetic. You know, I think some of you are taken in by, oh, he's so passionate, he loves the club. I've seen passionate players who are world class, and when you've seen that, you know, if you hadn't seen so much riches, you could live with being poor. I think some of you live with being poor in relation to some of the quality of players that we have. When you've seen the likes of Paul Ince and Paul Scholes and Roy Keane and Michael Carrick and people like that playing the midfield for Manchester United, I don't put up with the likes of, you know, Scott McTominay or Casemiro on the decline, or, you know, thinking through the past, Schneiderlin. You know, these players aren't good enough. I don't care how passionate they are. That's not a prerequisite to play for Manchester United. So there's nothing McTominay can do because I've seen enough. He can't pass, he can't tackle, he can't create, he doesn't pick up his man, he goes missing. He's good in the air and he scores a few goals, but he's a midfielder. I need a lot more than that. Goals and being good in the air aren't good enough for a Man United number 10, number 8 or number 6. So I wouldn't even use him as a bench option. I look at what Man City bring off the bench, like, and they ain't bringing on a Scott McTominay. So for me, he's got to go. But you're right. For some reason, United don't want to do it. But at Arsenal have just done it with their own McTominay, Smith Rowe. Like that, they've literally done it. Thanks, Mark. You remind me of my old UK workmates. I'm from States. You've smartened me up the last couple of years about footballing. United standards changed the game for sports delivery. Thank you, JJ. We appreciate that. What's Ten Hag's role to clear the deadwood, says Sanil. It's probably not the same as it was last year. I think he would say, I would like to move these players on and then leave it to the board to do it. Ligt, is another injury-prone player, says Baz. United taking long singing. I'm afraid that price go high, says HR Plays. Thank you very much for that. Right, just on the midfield, Agate and Zubimendi. I feel like Zubimendi is a bit of a... I don't know about you. I feel like, look, we already know from Fabrizio that Agate and Amrabat are the two most likely players to join Manchester United at the moment. And what we suspect is it could be either or and not both. I'd be happy with both, but it could be either or. Agate is the one I would like Manchester United to bring in. I think we all would like to see that. And very similarly to De Ligt, I actually do think we'll get Agate and De Ligt. You know, I do. I just don't know when. I would like to have them in now, but I don't know when. But what I was told when was I moaning? Yesterday morning, yeah. So what I was told yesterday, it's because I didn't do any streams after yesterday morning. I am on today, by the way. So yeah, I'd had a bit of a moan yesterday. Somebody got in contact with me and basically said, you know, understand. Well, they didn't really say that. What they said is, you know, I wouldn't be too concerned because Agate and De Ligt wouldn't be on the tour anyway. And even if Man United do deals next week, they still would be back in training. They wouldn't be in training any quicker. And that is true. That is true. Like, if United signed De Ligt today and Agate today, they won't train with the first team until a week on Monday anyway, or a week on Tuesday. So you could sign them today, or you could sign them mid next week, and they still don't train with the first team any quicker because they won't go to the States. But that doesn't mean that's the plan. That doesn't mean United are going, as long as we've bought them by the weekend after next, that's fine. That isn't the case. Like, we're not purposely keeping them back until next week for any reason. We're actually sort of struggling to negotiate with PSG and with Bayern at the moment. There's no breakthrough on the price. It's not like United are going, we can wait. Like, they would have done these deals last week if they could have done. So it's still deadlocked with PSG and Bayern. Zubimendi seems to be a bit of a hipster choice that's coming up on the rails. I'd be very happy with Zubimendi, but I'm not getting the sense that we're actually negotiating with Sociedad. I feel that Agate is still the priority. Now, whether you're happy with that or not, let's run a little poll on this one, actually. I'd be quite interested to see where you are with this. I mean, I really do like Zubimendi. I think he's a very, very good player, but be interested to know what you all think on that. So yeah, that's where we are with the midfield. We've spoken about Alonso. Just on the Zubimendi, Agate. Oh, yeah, this was something I just wanted to throw out as well. There was an article, I read it in was it the Mail or the Manchester Evening News? One of the two this morning, and it was talking about Jadon Sancho. And it was saying how Jadon Sancho and Man United have put their problems behind them, and he's back in training and he's gone on the tour. But Jadon Sancho's never been backwards at coming forwards in relation to his social media. Obviously not. You know, that tweet got him into trouble. And over the last 6 months, you know, he has posted about Dortmund. He's liked Man City players' posts, but there's been nothing. Apparently, there's been nothing according to this article. Not that I don't bother searching Jadon Sancho's Instagram or Twitter, but apparently there's been nothing from Sancho in relation to Manchester United since he's been back in training for the last 2 weeks. Apparently, his bio still doesn't say Man United about it. Apparently there's no pictures of him in training or anything like that. He's not done any interviews, and he wasn't photographed as part of the tour yesterday, even though he's part of it. So they're sort of like saying, well, look, it's just an unhappy marriage at the moment. This is clearly just about Sancho and Man United acting, grown up for once, and getting him fit and everything ready for a move at some point this summer. Which is, that is. There's nothing wrong with that. I remember when we heard he was training on that Friday and there was a lot of shock, but actually, I think it's beneficial for all of them. I think it's beneficial for Sancho. I think it's beneficial for Man United. If he was sat at home, his chance of getting a loan move would diminish. The chances of us selling or loaning him would diminish. This is a grown-up way of dealing with things. And, it doesn't mean that he definitely will get sold, but obviously... there is always two sides. I think everybody always goes, oh, don't sell Greenwood. But they don't understand that Greenwood wanted to be sold. And, some of the Player FC don't want to see Sancho get sold, but don't understand that Sancho might want to leave himself. And, if he hasn't got United in his profile and he isn't doing pictures on Instagram of United, maybe he wants to go as well. But I think the positive is that we're in a situation where both parties are acting professionally, and ultimately, I think we'll end up with what both parties want, one way or another. So I don't have a problem with that. Lee Payne says, let's end this stupidity regarding McTominay, Eriksen, Casemiro, Lindelof, Maguire. None of these would get into the City or Liverpool first team. I think that's the way to look at it, Lee. I think that is the way to look at it. I mean, look, in relation to those players, because I had noted it down here, McTominay is expected to stay. Eriksen is, as per Kev's video last night, expected to go to Ajax on a season-long loan. Some people don't understand what that means. He's out of contract in a year, so there is no loan, but we would get a loan fee of probably 3 or 4 million, which is probably all we'd get for him anyway. So Eriksen looks like he's going to go. Casemiro we'd love to sell, but we can't at the moment. Lindelof we'd love to sell. Maguire's expected to remain. So McTominay and Maguire... The latest from club sources is that McTominay and Maguire are expected to stay at Manchester United. Don't shoot the messenger on that one. I do not know if you want to call it unambitious, if you want to call it club stupidity. I don't know. I mean, I just think, look, if you're Scott McTominay, you're going to get picked for Scotland if you're playing for bloody Stockport, aren't you? But if you're Harry Maguire and England have got a new manager, I just don't know. Maybe he's retiring. Maybe he's going to retire. I don't know. Because I think if we did bring De Ligt in and Yoro's there and Martinez is there, I don't think how he would get in the team. In 2 or 3 years' time, Palmer would be a great Bruno replacement, says Luciano. I don't think we're going to get him out of there. Patrick says Maguire and McTominay are good backup options. What if you're Stoke? Like, why are they good backup options, Patrick? So if I'm Liverpool and I play with a high line, and Van Dijk gets injured and I bring on Konate or Kwanzaa or Gomez, they're good backup options because they can all play a high line. If I bring Maguire on, I'm fucked. I can't play a high line anymore. So how are they good backup options? If I take off Casemiro or Agate or Mainu and bring on McTominay, who can't pass and goes missing, how are they good backup options? I disagree, Patrick. You know, we can all make statements. I'm just talking to you about the style of footballer they are. Why are they good backup options for the way that we want to play football? And some people don't want to have that conversation. Same with Lindelof. You know, why is Lindelof a good backup option? Can't play a high line. So I disagree. I think this is what I mean. That sign, that line from that James song. If I hadn't seen so much riches, I could live with being poor. I think some of you act like you're poor in relation to your football knowledge, because you just say somebody's a good backup option and then you don't think about what style of football we want to play and what style of football they are. They're not. This is what's got us into trouble for years. We've got a mishmash of players that play different styles of football. Look at what happened last season. We're defending the edge of our box with centre-backs because they can't play a high line. So suddenly the midfield is wide open as the front line presses and the centre-backs stay deep. The midfield gets swamped in an area where you could land a bloody jumbo jet. So they're not good backup options. I think Maguire's a good centre-back in a certain system, but I'd rather have Joe Gomez because he can actually play a high line. I think, you know, we need to think more about the style of football we want to play and have a bench that can play that style of football. Mark, maybe Ten Hag and INEOS are going to try and bring Collier through as a CDM next to Mainu. I don't agree with it. No, the two pump, it's too soon to do that. Tusha says, let me solve the McTominay dilemma. For everyone, only reason every manager valued him was Glazers saying no to getting a replacement, which would be 40 million, says Tusha. Yeah, well, you might be right about that. INEOS signed up for this situation. If INEOS signed up for this situation, if they can't handle it, they should have let Qatar buy the club, says Jeff. It's going to take 3 to 4 windows for INEOS to put all wrong right that's been done in the previous regime. I like what I see so far, says Kevin. Amrabat and Rabiot, we've done that one as well. Hi Mark, as always, love the content. Was watching the 8 PM show last night and Kev looks really anxious and visibly sweating. Hope he's okay, says Sean. Hey mate, it's all right. That's, you know, come on. Look, it's a difficult job to walk into my shoes, and I think Kev does a great job. So I enjoy the shows with Kev, and the chat love it. So, you know, if you don't want to watch it, Sean, don't watch it. Season prediction with the same squad as of now. Akil. Well, that segues beautifully into what I want to talk about next. Look, I'm not saying this is true in any way, shape or form, but it does generate quite an interesting conversation. So yesterday, it came out that, and it came in from the Guardian, Jamie Jackson, saying that Erik Ten Hag is not under pressure to guide Manchester United to a top 4 finish next season, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe prioritising considerable progression of the team as he aims to establish sustained excellence. While Ten Hag's ambition is to lead United to as high a position as possible, and the football department want the same, there is a recognition that there are no guarantees next season as the club rebuilds, and that establishing a firm foundation will allow ongoing success. That, to me, has to be complete bollocks, or I'm absolutely terrified, because I am a massive fan of Ten Hag, as you know, but we've got to get top 4 next year. Like, it's wide open. Chelsea have gone and got a new manager, so forget about them. I mean, I'm not saying that Chelsea won't finish above us, but Chelsea, I think, are starting from further behind. Liverpool have got a new manager, which gives them a bit of vulnerability. Arsenal, Man City, fine. Spurs are Spurs. Villa have had to sell players and they've got Champions League football. Newcastle are a good team, but there's no reason why we wouldn't expect to finish above them. I think we've got to finish 4th next season. So either that's complete bullshit, or if it's true, are we starting to, is the anxiousness around this transfer window actually a premonition of truth? The only reason I would be saying we don't need to get top 4 this year is if we can't sell Casemiro. We can't get De Ligt and Agate. We'll have to bring Amrabat in for a year. If the problems are so deep that INEOS are going to sit with Ten Hag and say, look, we'll have to write the year off a little bit because we can't get everything we done. Look, what I'm saying is if we end up with a centre-back roster of Maguire, Lindelof, Evans, Yoro, Martinez, and a midfield of Amrabat, Casemiro, McTominay, Mainu, Mount, Bruno, maybe INEOS say, look, we know that's not the centre-back roster and the centre midfield roster we wanted. So we're not going to say to you, Eric, work a miracle. If you can get top 4 with that, great. But we've not delivered what we wanted to deliver in year 1. So we're not going to put on, we understand that it's going to be difficult. And that's the only interpretation I can think of that would make any sense. Because if we do get Agate and De Ligt, I would expect top 4. If we're not getting those players and it's not going to go to plan, and INEOS and Ashworth and Barada are going to say to Ten Hag, look, collectively we'll all take the blame on this. We haven't had this time, or we've not been able to sell players, or we've not been able to get players in that we wanted to. This is going to be a longer project than we thought. Then, I don't like it, but who do you blame? I wouldn't blame INEOS for that. If INEOS have to say to Ten Hag, look, do what you can with what you've got, but we've not been able to do what we wanted to do collectively. If you can get top 4, great, but we appreciate it will be difficult because you're not going to be able to play the way you want to play with those players. Then, maybe that is the case, but I don't think that. I really don't think that. I really don't. I think that when I look at United, it's never acceptable not to be in the top 4 anyway. So I think United have got to be in the top 4 this season. It's year 3 of Ten Hag's contract. We've won a trophy in the last 2 years. We had horrific injury problems last year. We had horrific problems around the structure, behind the scenes. I expect top 4 next year. I'm not saying I'd sack Ten Hag if he doesn't get top 4. I think that's ridiculous. But I don't like it when managers won't set targets at the start of the season. I grew up with Sir Alex Ferguson, who basically said, yeah, we're winning the league. And if we finished second, it was a failure. And it was horrible when we finished second. I think in recent years, I remember Solskjaer dodging it a little bit as well. There's almost like a fear to, set a target. If we can't set top 4 as a target for Man United, we may as well go home. If we're saying, top 4, don't want to say that, it should be top 4. Robert says, for me, 5th place is an auto-sacking. I think there's always context, Robert. What if we finish on joint points, 75 points with Newcastle, which would be, an all-time high for 4th place, and they win it by a goal. There's got to be context. It's easy for INEOS to say top 4 don't matter. The media hounds will be even more on of Ten Hag if we don't, says Kishan. Mark, have you ever considered doing a show alongside someone, says Mike. Absolutely not. Don't understand why people do it. No. I already do a show alongside people. It's you. If I have someone with me, that's a back and forth for 45 minutes, and we don't interact with you as much. So no, I don't like doing it. I've never done it. 10 years I don't do it. I don't hardly ever do it because it takes away from this. The reason people don't do it like this is because they're not comfortable doing it, or they're not very good at it. For me, 5th is an auto-sacking, says Robert. United are struggling with the Agate and De Ligt deals because you are dealing with big teams who, after seeing United make moves in the market... Sorry, I want to read this properly, oh no. He says, United are struggling with the Agate and De Ligt deals because you are dealing with big teams who, after seeing United make moves in the market, do not want to give them a decent deal, such as Bologna. There we go. City and Haaland lost yesterday, says Harvey, swept under the rug. John says, we have a loser's mentality if we are saying the Deadwood are good backup options. Sorry, where's that gone? We don't need anyone dragging us down, says John. I just think, as I said before, some people who think people like Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire are good backup options haven't spent the time we've spent, some of us, watching the proper standard of Manchester United. So therefore, you convince yourself that, you know, these players that aren't good enough are good backup options. But, you know, it's like having a good backup option is someone like Alvarez who comes on for Haaland. A good backup option is Trossard coming on for Martinelli. A good backup option is Vardiel coming on for Diaz, or Calafiori coming on for Gabriel. Like, these are good backup options because they're players that can play the same way and are quality. Look at what happened to us last season when we lost Martinez and Varane. We had to go and defend on the edge of the box. Deep line. They're not good backup options. They're options. They're not good backup options because they change the way you want to play. LMP says, maybe the reason why they don't expect top four from Ten Hag is because they're worried about not having backup players to play the same way. Yeah, well, I just said that. Yeah, very, very, very true. Very, very true. For us to come fifth, you won't see progression anyway, says Robert. And thank you very much for that. Standards on the floor, Mark. Finish fifth. He's gone, says Ben. And it's easy for... Done that one as well from Kishan as well. What's your honest thoughts on how the next few weeks go? Well, I'll throw that back. What's your honest thoughts on the way the next few weeks go? I mean, one thing I would say is that probably for the first summer in years, a lot of what I'm saying is opinion. There's not, you know, the people I used to speak to every other year either aren't getting information or don't want to share it because they are, you know, getting scraps and getting exclusives. So I can't sit here and say, like I have done in the past, you know, like with Rasmus and a couple of others, the deal will happen hotter than the sun. I'm you know, I can't do that. But what I would say as a pure opinion is that I think there's enough evidence from the last sort of 8 weeks of INEOS to suggest that they're trying to do things. Whereas maybe previous years there wasn't that hunger. But trying doesn't necessarily lead to the end game. And I think the big problem they're having is they can't sell players that don't want to go and people don't want to buy. People don't want to buy Casemiro, and I don't think he necessarily wants to go. And we've got a few players like that. We can't sell players that people don't want to buy and don't want to go. When you've got someone like Cambuala, he wants to go and his agent has gone and done the work with Villarreal. So Man United just have a decision to make. And that is what happens with a lot of people. You have a player that wants to go and their agent has already done a load of work finding them a club. And at Man United, we've got players that we would like to go. They don't really want to go and their agent's done fuck all. So, you know, you look at what happened with Cambuala. I don't 100% know this, but it happens a lot where a player will have got their agent to go out there and start finding them clubs in case they want to go. At United, that doesn't happen. Like, these players don't do it. They'll go, I'll leave if you find me a club, but they don't go finding a club themselves. So United end up having to do a shitload of work on top of negotiating incomings. You're trying to find clubs on outgoings, which always puts you at a disadvantage, because if I pick up the phone and I go to Everton, you know Branthwaite, we've got a few players like Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, Wan-Bissaka. They'd really improve your squad. They're probably playing your first team out. In fact, they would. You know, Wan-Bissaka would be a starter for you. You know, we can do a good deal, but you're begging. It puts you at a disadvantage straight away because you're Manchester United ringing up clubs, seeing if they're interested in buying your players. Whereas if the agent of the player's going around doing it, it's very different. So we struggle to sell. We struggle to sell. And that is where I think we are at the moment. I think that right now, I felt a few weeks ago that we might hit an 8 or 9 out of 10 transfer window where we sold a lot and brought in 6 or 7. I think at the moment, I'm basically writing off the next 10 days. I don't think we're going to do anything sales-wise over the next 10 days because they're all on tour having a great time. So I don't think we'll be selling any players for the next 10 days. Then they'll be going into the Community Shield, seeing if they're in the team. Then it's Fulham. So I'm really worried about sales. That honestly, sales terrify me because everyone's on tour. We haven't bought anybody. And they'll all be thinking, oh, I'll stay here. So I'm worried about the sales. I do think we'll get Agate and Ligt. I don't know how that works if you can't sell players. But I do think we'll get Agate and Ligt. But I think we're massively struggling to get players out the door. And maybe that's why we're getting stories about top 4 isn't necessarily our target. Because how can you look at that squad at the moment and think we'll get top 4? It's basically the same squad as last year, with Yoro coming in for Varane and Xerxes coming in for Martial. It's basically the same squad. That's quite a sobering thought. That's true, actually, isn't it? We're basically the same squad as last season. Xerxes for Martial, Yoro for Varane. Yeah, we're not getting top 4, are we? To be fair, we need to make some changes, and then that surprises me, actually. Wow. It doesn't feel like it's just that, does it? It doesn't feel like that. I mean, Mason Greenwood's gone, but Mason Greenwood's not played for Man United for nearly 3 years. As I said, you can't miss what you haven't had. Camboire was a young player last season. Donny's not been here for ages. So yeah, we've basically replaced Varane with Yoro and Xerxes with Martial. That's it. It is a sobering thought. Yeah, I don't feel guilty anymore. There's a hell of a lot that needs to be done. If we're celebrating that, then we've got very low standards. There's a hell of a lot more that needs to be done. And, you know, getting on the plane to America smiling with your new kit on, no. We need to do a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more. Ray's just gifted 5 memberships. You're a legend, Ray. Happy birthday to Reese, says Vicky. Happy birthday to Reese. I know it's just a game, but it's a good reflection. If you played Football Manager last season, you can't sell any United players because of their wage, says Andrew. Well, Football Manager is very realistic. That's why I broke the National League goal record with Solihull Moors and got us promoted, because I am a very good manager. You know, these things are just fact. Talking about self-promotion, please do pre-order the book. It's coming out next Wednesday, so even a pre-order now, it's not even really a pre-order. You're going to get it on Wednesday morning. Audible. There is an audio version of this book. There is the book itself. If you live outside the UK, use Amazon, scan the QR code, links in the description. If you want a signed copy with a few, you know, there's a few that have got some nice little messages in, WH Smith. And if you want to enter the competition, which is going to close next week, around winning some prizes, one of which is a trip to the Goldbridge Arms. Scan the QR code, go through the Penguin link and do that. Please do pre-order it. We are getting very, very close to the number that we think will be required to get in the top 10 Sunday Times bestsellers list, which would be massive. So please do pre-order it. It's a good book. I would love for us to get in the top 10, but you know, I'm not asking you to buy a turd. You know, it's not charity. It actually is a good book. So please do check it out. If you like the United Stand and you like That's Football and you like the content I do, then there's a lot of stuff in the book that you will enjoy. Please do pre-order it. A link's in the description. Scan the QR code. Thanks, everyone. I'm back at 2 o'clock anyway. Get your comments in. Fantastic show this morning. And I'll speak to you all in a bit.